Hey everybody, welcome back, and we are live at RSAC 2022. I'm your host, Jack Scott, and if you're tuning in live right now and you've never been here, welcome. This is the Outpost Gray YouTube channel in collaboration with Grant Thornton Public Sector. I am so thrilled to have you guys here. Typically, we do live streams every Thursday from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. EST. We are not doing those because we are on site and we are doing live interviews with amazing guests. And I'm so thrilled about our guests that we have today. But really quick, just to remind you all of the amazing thoughts and opinions that are on this show are my thoughts and opinions and not Grant Thornton Public Sector's thoughts and opinions. So we have an amazing guest that we're going to be talking to today. Tonia Dudley is the strategic advisor with Cofence, and we're going to be chatting with her about RSA, and we're going to be talking to her about what she does at Cofence. So without further ado, let's get her on here. Awesome, it worked. Yay, we even did the transition.
Nice job.
So Tonia, welcome.
Thank you.
You're my third interview.
This is exciting.
I know.
I've never done a little podcast like this before.
You're in the Outpost Gray community family now, so welcome.
Thank you.
How are you liking RSA in-person events?
It's great. It's great to see people in person, connecting with so many people that I haven't gotten to see over the last couple of years. I've had so many people texting me, hey, are you at RSA?
Yes.
So yeah, it's great kind of catching up with people.
I'm feeling a little tired, not gonna lie. I feel like it's just like sensory overload.
Yeah, if you haven't given yourself small doses of in person, then yeah, it can be a lot.
It's a marathon.
Yeah.
This is a marathon.
Right.
This is not a race. Pace
Right.
yourself. So we've only got a little bit of time together. So let's jump into it. But first, let's talk about like, what do you do at Cofence? And actually, no, stop. What is your background? How'd you get to Cofence?
Yeah, that's a because I actually I was a customer of Cofence in 2011, running awareness programs and doing incident response. And so as I was kind of trying to figure out what's next, they said, maybe it's time that you come help us out. And so in my role, I get to meet with customers, help them with their awareness programs or their incident response, but then also help our internal teams understand the perspective of that awareness or incident response buyer. So it's kind of twofold, and then working directly with our co-founder and CTO. Sometimes he sends me off on little expedition projects that I get to enlighten my day. So it's really a really unique position that I'm in, but I really enjoy it.
Okay, so for all the viewers, can you explain like a high-level understanding of what Cofence does?
Sure. So Cofence is phishing email security. We started, our two co-founders, Aaron Higbee and Rohit Balani, started this phishing simulation methodology many years ago with our PhishMe product, and we were known as PhishMe for many, many years. But then it didn't take long as they realized that as we're training people how to identify fish, there's actually benefit in them reporting that. And so that's where we, built Reporter, and then we had people start reporting these emails. And now all of a sudden our security operations teams are like, whoa, what's going on here? So then we developed our product Triage that actually helps those security operations teams prioritize, mitigate, and look for those really dangerous fish, right? To prioritize, and people like to use that as their delete button, right? So you can imagine they get overwhelmed. And then the most recent product that we have is Vision, which sits at the gateway, just past the gateway, uses the journaling feature of Microsoft and creates a copy, right? So they can do threat hunting. They can auto quarantine those messages just as they come in and hit that inbox. They can take them out just as fast. So that way the user doesn't even have a chance to interact with it. And we've seen a really great success in the last few months where we've enabled that capability much more, feeding in our phishing threat intelligence into Vision. That is already known bad threats because we know the threat actors use those across, like they reuse those.
So behavioral analysis is
not really behavior, it's just already known indicators to be able to look for those email accounts or those links or those web pages. So then being able to mitigate those much faster, right? Because the more we can push it out the edge and prevent that user from even having to interact with it or question, is this legitimate? Because as we see messages now, they are so real looking, right? So it's really easy for them to create that little Microsoft alert that makes it look like, oh, I just need to download this document, right? So the more we can kind of help mitigate that before the user even has to interact with it, the better secure we are.
Yeah, and just for everybody's awareness, I mean, phishing is still the #1 vector that is being utilized to breach an organization. You've got human error, and then that human error is by clicking, and it is still primarily phishing. So you guys are taking on a big feat because there's different types of phishing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got you hear phishing, spear phishing, and then even the new coin word you hear is business email compromise, or BEC.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, and that's a big one because it's targeting those executives. It's really a hyper-focused one.
So we wouldn't necessarily say they're targeting them. They're spoofing those executives or well-known, authority figures in the organization. So business email compromise, it doesn't have a link or an attachment like we would normally see as a phishing attack, right? And so it's just getting it's a conversation starter, right? They're just, hey, do you have a moment? And we've actually even started tracking this in 2015 and seen it evolve over the years, just the way that they're asking for that conversation starter. It used to be, hey, I need you to wire me some money. Now they've evolved to just saying, hey, do you have a moment? And then it starts a conversation. And then how many messages back and forth before they say, I need you to go and get me some gift cards, right? That is one of the common ones that we see, is getting gift cards. And it's surprisingly and very disheartening how many times we see employees that actually go buy those gift cards and do that, and then try and explain to their boss, well, I thought you asked me for these $400 in gift cards, right? And it really wasn't them. So that is a big one. And then along with those lines, they're asking for other things like an aging report or some other things, because now they're going to spoof maybe a third party that you do business with. So it looks like they're asking for things related to that, sending, change the bank account on our vendor master file, or even, hey, I need to change the bank account on my direct deposit. So, that is a very common one that we see, right? Payroll theft. What's interesting though, is as we were preparing for a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and I was going and pulling some real BEC messages related to direct deposit, what I always tell people when I'm talking about BEC is make sure that your employees know to use your portal, right? How do you go in and change it within your company, organizations, HR teams, direct your employees to, self-service. The threat actor actually changed their message to say, hey, I tried to log into the portal and I'm getting an error message. Can you change it for me? So it's not only, so they're also learning your business processes, and we're learning how to change their wording and verbiage to get you to interact with them. So
it sounds like not only are the emails becoming more sophisticated, so the actual email formatting, we're not seeing the spelling errors that we typically have. Those email addresses are starting to look more legitimate because they're spoofed. But not only that, but it sounds like they're taking their time to create rapport before they ask for, specifically talking BEC, before they ask for those gift cards.
Yeah.
Knowing that, and knowing that we're seeing a rise in just overall phishing attacks, I want to talk to you about COVID, because especially with BEC, you had that executive and you had that CEO, and typically they were in that same room together. So it really helped mitigate that, hey, go buy those credit cards for me, because they were sitting right there.
Right.
What have you seen for the increase on phishing attacks because of COVID? And now that we're going back, a lot of organizations are going back to in person. Do you see it decreasing, or do you just see across the space that this is just going to be a continued problem?
Yeah, we haven't seen it go down. It is, as a matter of fact, so first I'll start with COVID. So, initially we said, okay, are we seeing them leverage this theme? And at first, we saw them change their messaging. But then we also started to see they were taking their existing templates and dropping in the word COVID or pandemic, right? Because we're like, okay, this is the same threat group we've already been kind of following. And so they've adjusted because they know this is what works. And we absolutely recommended that our customers do not simulate this topic, right? It's very sensitive. There's a lot going on with it. Here's how you communicate, what people should be looking for. We didn't see it go down. And what we have actually seen, that we published in our annual report just the past February, was that a Credentialfish, where they're asking you to log into a web, giving you a link to a web page, asking you to give your credentials, went up 10 percentage points. So it didn't get better. It wasn't flat. It actually got worse and went up 10 percentage points. So if you think about all of the services now that organizations have gone to that are hosted in the cloud, it needs your credentials, right? And so by gaining those credentials, now they can log into a website or a service or a cloud service or your network as a legitimate user and go undetected. So those credentials have become so valuable to a threat actor.
Wow. How is Cofence helping organizations combat this type of attack? Because this is scary. I mean,
so there's twofold. So within our PhishMe platform doing simulations, right, we really recommend simulate. I know it's really complicated, having run many simulations myself, when you have to, get everybody on board and ready to, we're going to run the simulations. Here's what it's going to be. When you run a Credentialfish, it's really hard because people are like, are you going to track their passwords? What's going to happen? Are we going to get all these calls to help desk? But honestly, you want to prepare your organizations for a training event, right, of doing that credential, because you don't want to have to deal with the aftermath of what happens when it's a real Credentialfish. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, because our threat intelligence is very specific to phishing threats, and because we see a high volume of this, that is a lot of what's in our phishing intelligence feed. So by using our threat intelligence feed and putting that into your systems and looking for that and proactively trying to detect those, that's another way we're helping organizations combat that. So that's where our Vision product, where we're feeding those IOCs into Vision to be able to proactively block those potential credential thefts, phish.
Okay, so let's do a little bit of a pivot and let's kind of talk about how to just prevent these attacks from even happening in the first place. Human error, like that's the number one cause that we're seeing is human error. And a lot of phishing, most phishing is driven by emotion, like not just BEC, but talk about a late payment or your credit card's been locked. You need to click on this link to verify your information. What is Cofence doing to help stop it at the human level?
So it really comes down to really helping train your users to understand what it is that you should be looking for in these messages, right? And we really know that the finance team is, when we see the themes of the phishing emails, like at least 40% of those are invoice, finance related, right? An invoice, a purchase order, all those things that you're going to have to interact with because that's your business, right? So it's also helping those teams to really understand what is your process, what should you be looking for, how do you validate that this is really something legitimately that you do business with. So first and foremost, it's training, right? Training your employees how to watch out for those things. I'm trying to remember what the part of the breadth of your question was.
Educating the end user.
Really,
let's get them to stop clicking. I don't know if we're ever going to get there, to be honest.
And that's really why we focus on report that phish, right? If you suspect that this doesn't look right, report that. And one of the things that we do in our Phishing Defense Center, where we support all of our products for customers, is we make sure that user gets a response back. So, say you report something and it was an invoice, but it looks funky. So if you're not reporting that or responding back to them within a certain amount of time, they're just going to go ahead and interact with that. So that getting them feedback on what they reported is valuable, right? So was it just spam? Okay, now I know that I don't need to report this thing. Or that was a malicious invoice file. We've removed that from your inbox, and we're going to look to see, did anybody else get that message too, so we can take that out of their inboxes as well and mitigate that threat. So that way they aren't interacting with it. But also, that feedback loop is so critical to that end user, because if you're not getting back to them, they're going to go ahead and interact with that message.
So any individuals or organizations that are watching this live feed right now and wondering, okay, what can I do to help secure my organization from a phishing attack? Obviously, the first thing is call Cofence, and you need to talk to Tonia. What is the second step that they could do right now to secure their organization?
It's really just training your users, right, to understand what
to look for,
and reporting. Reporting is so critical because there's value in what those indicators are in those phishing emails for your security team to be able to mitigate that threat, right? Did anybody click on this? Did it go on our, look on our endpoints? Does anybody have any malware that may have gotten installed, right? Did anybody click out to a URL that, we can block at the network endpoint? So there's lots of value in just getting that email off to the security team.
Education. Yes. That's what I keep hearing. Yes. So we do have a question. How often do you recommend end users to go through training? Once a year, twice a year?
So we know that we have the annual checkbox training, right? And that's where we really emphasize phishing simulation is different, right? It's simulating in that environment where they're actually going to experience that phishing email. And then we say if you're just starting out your program, frequency matters, right? Because we know that it takes up to 4 scenarios before we see that decline in repeat clickers. So frequency. So as you mature your program, then you can back that off and maybe just specialize in your highly targeted finance or HR teams. But quarterly, we say at least quarterly to remind them, hey, don't forget,
at least quarterly.
Right.
Yeah, as much as possible. And do remedial training if they fail. Like the second time, I know I worked at a fintech. You felt the first time you had to do like a course and do a follow up on it.
Yeah, and we actually see, because frequency matters, following up with what I used to do even in my program was anybody that was a repeat clicker. Then 2 weeks later, I'm going to send them another scenario, just that group of people, right, so that it's still fresh in their mind, and then they're getting that follow up training with just another simulation, because we know that is actually more effective than any other kind of training that you're going to get.
100%. Okay, we are about to come at time, but I want to make sure that we do a wrap up and allow you enough time for the individuals to have your contact information and the best way to be able to reach you.
Sure. So you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to take people's questions. I'm on Twitter, or you can email me at tonia.dudley@cofence.com. Or just reach out to our website, and we have somebody that will engage with you.
All right, you guys heard it here. Tonia Dudley, reach out to her. She is the strategic advisor with Cofence. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and enjoy the rest of your time here at RSAC.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.